What's up? It's Joe Crest here, aka Ted Wheeler on Stranger Things. And look, I also wanted to say thanks so much for watching the show. That means a whole lot to all of us out here. But I want to give you a little dad advice before I get out of here, okay? A little dad advice here from your on-screen dad. Don't go out there. Just like Nike says, just don't do it. Go get him.
They've conquered the big screen. Now, get ready for the spin-off sure to send chills down your spine. It's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin in Don't Go Out There, the series.
Welcome back, everybody, to DGOT, the series. We really appreciate y'all listening. We hope y'all have been enjoying these series reviews. I know we have. It's been a lot of fun. Just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgooutthere.com. Everything about our podcast is on the website. All of our episodes and interviews, if you want to check those out. We've done some incredible interviews in the past. Go check them out there in a specific tab by themselves so you don't have to scroll through hundreds of episodes on Apple or Spotify, etc. We also have our store if you want to grab a shirt, a mouse pad, a hat, all that good stuff. We'd love to see your pictures, rep your favorite podcast. And Shan's Etsy page is also attached if you want to grab a tumbler. All of our social media links are on there as well. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Like us, subscribe us, follow us, all that good stuff. And the last thing I want to shout out on our website is our Patreon. We call it Blood Donors. We have the traditional monthly reoccurring kind. If you want to support us, help us pay the bills, as we say. Or if there's a movie you want us to review, that option is available as well. Just check out our website, don'tgooutthere.com. Also, if you haven't noticed, we've recently joined the Believe Network. So there's some ads on our program now. But if you want ad-free content, go check us out on Blood Donors. The ad-free episodes will be available there. We appreciate your support. As we continue on with Stranger Things Season 1, I'll just give my quick thoughts. I love both episodes. Like, episode 6, towards the end, is one of my favorite scenes from the entire season. If I remember correctly, that is my favorite scene from the entire season. But it's like Mike and I both, and Brian have all said, I haven't seen this season in a while, but I mean, like I mentioned last week, it's more of the same, and it's not a bad thing because I've loved everything I've gotten before it. So I'm continuing my love fest. Brian, what do you think about these next 2 episodes?
Yeah, these two kind of felt like one big episode to me. So it's kind of hard for me to differentiate with this one. Either way, they're fantastic. Episode 5 felt like it cut back and forth just so many damn times, but it's getting to that third act of the season. All of these storylines are all in different places, so it makes sense for sure. It didn't take away from it, but it kind of ruined my little gimmick at the end, so I'm kind of going to put that to the hold. We'll get to that when we get there.
Yeah, I really did like these 2 episodes a lot. Again, I like this whole season a lot. I mean, it is really a fun trip down memory lane at this point. And honestly, something I've really pointed out in my notes here is I forgot they introduce a lot of this stuff this early. There's a few things I'm like, Elle's mom, the KGB. Like that kind of all feels like season 2, season 3 stuff to me. And nope, here it is in season 1. It has been so long since I've seen it. I forgot. Again, like Brian said, it is kind of one long run on episode to me where it all kind of starts to blend together. But again, I think these are really good, really well done, and we are starting to ramp up a lot of the more horror. I don't want to say horror elements of the series. Up to this point, we've gotten some, but it's been more about laying the groundwork and the characters and things like that. In these 2 episodes, we're getting the Upside Down in all of its glory. We're getting blood. We're getting eating. We're getting feeding. We're getting all kinds of shit. So I think we kind of ramp it up here, and I think they do a really good job.
Yeah, so as you all know, I'm not the biggest fan of this show. And the reason was when I watched the first season, I was like, that was fine. So I joke around with you guys like I hate it, but that's not the case. I just thought it was an okay show. And then having to wait like a year and a half after season 1 before we got season 2, I just lost interest, never went back and watched it. But I think these 2 episodes on this rewatch reminded me like, it is better than I thought. I still don't love it, but it's better than I thought. And these 2 episodes play into that a lot. So now I feel like I want to watch season 2 and 3 just to see where the story goes, because it's not bad. These 2 episodes, I agree with what you said, Brian, about how these 2 episodes kind of feel like one big episode, which to me is how shows should feel, especially in the streaming era where everything's dropped at once. You know, if it's a weekly show and you've got to make your time worthwhile, and you got ads that you got to account for, they get a little bit slower because it's been a week since the last episode, so they got to kind of ease you back into it. What I appreciate about this is there's no real wasted motion. Like they jump into where we left off, and they keep the story progressing at a good pace. So yeah, I like these 2 episodes. Definitely the best so far.
Okay, no doubt at all. You guys have anything before we jump into scene by scene? All right, Chapter 5, The Flea and Acrobat. And just to open with a quote from John Turturro from Deeds, "You do not underestimate the sneakiness, sir." As we open with Hopper sneaking into Hawkins' lab, although I gave him too much credit as he is caught by 2 guards trying to enter the quarantine 3rd level. But don't underestimate the hop, as he knocks one the fuck out and takes their key card and shooting device. Back at Joyce's Christmas light extravaganza, Lonnie joins her for a drink, and he tries to convince her to get counseling following the believed death of Will, and the story of her almost touching him through the wall, saying she sounds a little crazy, which is true. Back at the lovely lab of death, Hopper finds a child's bedroom with a drawing of Papa and 11. We then cut back to Mike's basement, where Mike uses what will eventually help him become a Ghostbuster and figures out what the Upside Down is. We cut back and forth as the guys liken the Upside Down to the Veil of Shadows in Dungeons and Dragons, and Hopper finding the fissure. But before he can walk into it, he's knocked out by the guards, and we get that title sequence Mike said never to skip. Boom, 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 boom. After the break, Jonathan returns home and is less than happy to see Lonnie, and after a talk, Lonnie tells him to take down his Evil Dead poster. And since that movie sucks, I support it. But also, yeah, kind of inappropriate as well. I mean, I'm going to side with him on that. Lonnie around here making too much sense. We see a montage of everyone getting ready for Will's funeral, and we see a flashback of Joyce watching Will draw his D&D character, Will the Wise, while we are looking at Cotton-Eyed Will's casket. Go ahead.
Yeah, Hopper is sneaky like ninja, but I refuse to believe this place doesn't have a camera like by the entrance. I mean, come on. Chief Hopper is caught by camera. It proves me wrong, but I still ain't buying he'd make it that far, just considering the secrecy of the place and how important this place is to them. There it is, the ex-husband who thinks it's all in their head, but maybe there's some validity this time. Like Joyce is kind of acting crazy, so I kind of see where Lonnie's coming from, even though he sucks. We get a nice aha moment with Hopper finding Eleven's old room. I really like that. My man Mike is a young Sherlock Holmes figuring out everything with that board by simply hearing Eleven say Upside Down. And fun fact about that, this is the first episode where the world is mentioned as the Upside Down. Lucas' continued frustration with Eleven is my favorite. Lucas cracks me up. I think he's funny in these early episodes. I can't imagine what the hell Hopper is thinking right now, seeing all this stuff in the lab. Like, he's just a regular small-town sheriff. Like, what the hell is all this? Needle to the neck. On my first watch, I thought Hopper was a goner. I was like, damn, we're getting rid of the sheriff already. This dad, he sucks. Terrible father. And while I think Evil Dead, like you mentioned, Brian, isn't a good movie, I don't think it's inappropriate to have that poster up. I mean, maybe he liked it. Pretty intense opening with Hopper, but no sad emotions for me for Will's funeral. Just considering we already know he's got an imposter corpse. That's all I got. Go ahead, Mike.
His son kind of died, and then they got a poster of like a dead hand coming out of the. Like, I get why I would say that's inappropriate too.
Oh, so
in that context, I just kind of took it like, he's been had it up there. You know what I'm saying?
So you consider the kids and say that's inappropriate, but you don't consider the kids, and when you're talking about
right, correct,
fornicating in the kitchen. Okay, got it.
Do as I say, not as I do. Anyway, I actually really love the fast evolution of Hopper here, right? Like, we kind of go from, like I mentioned in the first 2 episodes, this kind of normal 80s cop character, right? And then he's kind of a badass all of a sudden, right? Like, he's, don't underestimate the hop, like Brian said. I agree with you, Nico. I would think that Joyce was out of her mind too if I were Lonnie. That doesn't mean Lonnie doesn't suck ass, by the way. He sucks. He's a pile of dog shit. But I would also be like, lady, what are you talking about? Things coming out of the wall? Like, what the fuck do you mean? And again, hey, raise your hand if you've also vented to your ex like a dumbass, like Joyce, huh? Especially after, yeah, that's what I thought. Everyone's done that. Everyone's been the dummy there. Bad timing. I think finding the drawing that was clearly in Elle's room there was very spooky, very, very unsettling, unnerving, right? Because it looks like it was left behind, abandoned. That's the kind of feel they were given. And we know that's Elle that drew that, and that makes it even creepier. I do like the explanation of the upside down. Someone like me needs that exposition a little bit as far as how it's tying in a little bit to D&D and things like that. Like I did like that. That kind of helped me kind of understand it. And shout out, and maybe Brian will probably put this, Brian or Dustin can put this on a t-shirt. Don't skip the intro and the Stranger Things font, because it's true. It really does get me in the vibe of the episode. Like I do not skip the Stranger Things intro. Normally I fucking skip an intro. I'm looking for that button as soon as I can. If I were John here and I showed up and Lonnie was at my house, I'd probably kick his ass. Like straight up. Like knowing what we know, but like, hey, I'm not even going to let you be in here. I'm kicking your ass. I'm definitely not taking down my Evil Dead poster. That's none of your fucking business. You don't live here. Wouldn't it be really strange? I've never thought about this. Wouldn't it be really strange getting ready for a funeral for someone that you either know isn't dead or don't believe is dead? Very odd, very strange feeling. And that's what I thought of when I saw this, which is why I laughed out loud when Dustin makes fun of this girl for crying. it cracked me up, man. I was like, all right. And man, Dustin's kind of an asshole. He's kind of like our resident Dustin, but also lovable at the same time. Also, last thing, Joyce is me as fuck here talking to Will about his comic book or superhero shit. That's how I am on this show when you guys do that bullshit. Oh yeah, that's great, honey. Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
I definitely thought you were talking about me when you said Dustin. I keep forgetting there's Dustin and Mike. Okay.
You're a lovable asshole like he is what I meant. So
I'm trying to.
So you're a lovable and funny asshole like this, Dustin.
I like that we open with Hopper's side quest at the lab here. No wasted motion getting us going, like I said. And I like his diversion tactic. Say it's Chief Jim Hopper. Like, duh, idiot. And then right hook. Nice. Then we cut back to Joyce and more great emotional acting from Winona Ryder. Hats off to her again. We get the first mention of the Upside Down, and it's a great concept. I got to admit, cool seeing Mike piece it together. And I like the cuts back and forth from the boys to Hopper as he navigates through that lab. But I got to say, I don't know if I'd touch that goo if I was Hopper. No thanks. Like, it looked gross, and even if you can get past the grossness, it doesn't look safe. I wouldn't touch it. Tough scene with Jonathan talking to his dad. I mean, the guy hasn't been there, and all of a sudden he wants to play family. That's rough. Good flashback with Will and Joyce at breakfast. We definitely need more showing of their dynamic and chemistry, so I like that, and I like how it comes back into play later. So it's a solid open.
Okay, so bear with me. I got one of those unbalanced scenes here. Hop wakes up in his trailer with it made to look like he had an all-night bender, which we know is not the case. He tears his trailer apart and finds a bug in his overhead light. Again, I love this Hopper. I forgot how awesome he is. We see Dr. Brenner listening to the recording of the boys listening to Will and Joyce and realize that 11 was with them. Back outside the graveyard, Nancy and Jonathan decide to hunt down and kill the Demogorgon that took Will and Barb. Jonathan grabs a gun to Nancy's dismay, and smartly, Jonathan asks if they find it, are they wanting to just take another photo or yell at it? Exactly. Jesus Christ, Nancy. We then cut to the school where the lab-employed repairman checks the destroyed radio and reports his findings back to his superiors at the lab. Meanwhile, at Will's wake, the boys approach Mr. Clark and ask him how to travel to another dimension. Normal question. I mean, I'm assuming from these boys, to be honest. So he illustrates on a paper plate the theoretical concept of a tightrope that separates two dimensions, with an acrobat being able to inhabit one, but a flea being able to duck under the tightrope as an analogy, and that they would need an inhuman amount of energy. When Mike mentions the gate already possibly existing, Clark explains that it would change magnetic fields surrounding it. Back at Hopper's Love Shack on the lake, Callahan and Powell visit to report 2 people gone missing in the woods. They also note that they found Barb's car with state troopers having found it at a bus station. I told you there was a bunch of jump cuts here. We quickly jump back to Lonnie implying to Joyce that they should make the Sattler Company pay for Will's death, to which she finds a flyer for an accident attorney in his bag. And before jumping back to Mike explaining the plate analogy to 11, Dustin realizes all their compasses are not pointing north and remembers Clark saying that the gate would disrupt magnetic fields. He concludes that if they follow the compass needles, they will find the gate, which quietly distresses 11. We then cut to Steve and Nancy, where he apologizes for being a dick and asks her to take her out on a date, but she cockblocks him. And then we cut as we cut back to Joyce confronting Lonnie about the flyer and kicking Lonnie the fuck up out the house like he was a cult member in the movie Mother and it was Mike Settle's house. Get the fuck out. Nancy is now practicing shooting the gun with Jonathan and bonding over a moment, and that's the end of this fucking long ass set of scenes. I'm sorry.
Yet again, I can't imagine what Hopper is thinking waking up on his couch after everything he just experienced in his lab. Inspecting the house for cameras or bugs I thought was brilliant, and the man is a damn thinker. I'll give Hopper that. And LOL, these top secret agents put the bug in the most obvious spot of the house. But of course, Hopper looks there last. I get Jonathan's perspective wanting to kill the monster first, but you got to tell your mom, right? Like, if she would be crushed into an oblivion of hopelessness if she loses her other son while all this happens. I can see how some could see this scene with the teacher and think maybe it's convenient. The teacher has an all-knowing answer, but I buy it. He has a connection with the kids on a deeper level with this kind of nerdy stuff, so it worked for me. Listen, Lonnie stinks, but it makes sense for him to cover the giant hole in the wall. Like, why are they questioning this man for covering the giant hole in the wall when it's cold outside? Like, I didn't get that. Dustin with some good hypothesizing now with the compasses, and I like the concerned face that 11 made. I can't stress how much fun it's been for me personally revisiting the first season with the nostalgia of all the kids' camaraderie, like getting to learn this group. I loved it. Steve continues to shine, but you can see he's visibly shook from getting denied by a girl. My man had all the riz, but my man's feelings got hurt, and you can see it. Winona acting as if the rent's due when she's acting her ass off with Lonnie, but I gotta admit, my man Lonnie, played by Ross Partridge, he held his own with her. I thought he did a great job, and this is the last episode he's in of the show. And this is the last thing I got, Mike. Nancy straight up saying her mom is a gold digger. Wow. At least Nancy's got a good shot, though. But she damn sure did say her mom's a gold digger.
She's brutal. She was brutal on her parents in general. That was crazy. So Hopper being bugged, I thought was interesting. You know, like I mentioned, I kind of forgot that we get this Russia KGB storyline fear here that we got in the 80s. It's a very 80s based fear. And I think it was interesting that he, found out that he was bugged. Also, unlike you, I would not have reacted that calm, even though he didn't act calm, but I would have been more freaked out if I just woke up on my couch after all that. Very interesting. And of course, everyone's bugged actually. So that's how that's going. Again, making this plan to look for this at this point mythical creature at your brother's funeral is wild behavior. Like that, like everyone's sad and in mourning, and you're trying to find a Demogorgon. That's crazy. And Will, of course. Again, then they're kind of going over science and D&D and all this mumbo jumbo. Nerds. Sorry, I had to do it at least once an episode. I'm not gonna lie. Hopper looks like shit the way I do on camera right now. He looks like he's hungover after a one night stand. So I've been there, brother. Again, Joyce is like me here. Why are you taking down my Christmas lights? We got to keep these lights up as long as we can. As Brother Brian knows, if I'm going to go through the trouble of putting them up, might as well have them up as long as I can because that shit is not fun. I will say, having these 2x4s up in the house, I appreciate you, Lonnie. I agree with you, Nico. I'm not hating on the man for, blocking a hole, but it is a funny look. I'm not going to lie. Just having these planks of wood over this, massive hole. I'm not so sure how warm that would keep it, but I appreciate the effort. I like that Elle knows that the boys are either heading in the wrong direction or they're heading into danger just by a simple look on her face. Like you can tell she knows something about their adventure here isn't right. Nancy's got to work on her swing. It is awful. That is terrible form. We have got, I'm no hitting coach, but I used to hit dingers back in the day. Okay. I could help Nancy if she needs a little bit of help. That swing is not going to get it done. Even against a big, bad, scary guy, that swing's going to get your ass kicked. I forgot, again, something that I forgot early, and I know he becomes a massive dick for a little while here in a second. But this is the first episode we actually see a different side of Steve. which we get throughout the rest of the series. But this is kind of the first sneak peek of it, right? I think he actually likes Nancy, has genuine feelings for her. I don't think it's this pride thing. I think he's like, crap, man. How did I screw this up? I actually like this girl. And so, you know, you get a little bit of sweet thing here. Sweet Steve is a sign of things to come, which again, we're laying some groundwork for the character. I knew Lonnie would crash and burn. He was there for all the wrong reasons the whole time. And again, we don't see him again after this season. And Winona acts her fucking ass off, telling him basically to fucking leave her house. Which, by the way, Brian, to come back to that, could the whole movie of Mother not be solved by kicking everybody out the goddamn house? Am I wrong about this? I don't think I'm wrong about this. Everybody leaves, nothing happens, and they live as simple country folk for the rest of their life. But no, we have to be a parable for the Bible. We can't just be a normal family. We got to do all this crazy cult stuff. Anyway, last one. Nancy would never be able to lie and hide from Steve like this in 2025 because you could track whoever the fuck you want. Even with your tracking off, there are ways. That's creepy, but I'm just letting you know. Go ahead.
Yeah, Hopper definitely had every reason to freak out and check his place for bugs, but man, all I could think about was that he'll never financially recover from this. He destroyed everything he owned. And then, you know, I go back and forth on how I feel about the, quote, no one believes the person who's really right trope in this show. Like, I don't mind it when no one believes Joyce, probably because what she says is actually crazy. But for some reason, Jonathan stealing the gun and refusing to get others involved really annoys me. Like, he should at least tell his mom. I know that she's been through a lot, but at least it's another person who could potentially help because she's seen some crazy stuff too. I like the boys picking their teacher's mind to try and grasp on the upside down concept. It was well done and an entertaining scene. And I also like the, quote, coincidence that they keep doing their job for us. And I like Hopper's reaction. Good plot development. It really grinded my gears when Lonnie called Joyce babe. Get lost, deadbeat. And when Joyce finds the flyer for the attorney, yeah, he sucks. I know Brian's not going to like this, but All the Right Moves is still playing, and man, I hate that movie. Tom Cruise sucks. Shout out to Leah Thompson, though.
Tom Cruise.
Good for Joyce to. I'm just not a fan. There's only like a handful. Jack Reacher is probably my favorite Tom Cruise movie, or Days of Thunder. Anyway, good for Joyce to tell Lonnie off, but man, he's a scumbag. When he said, "Look what happened," I wanted to jump through the screen and handle him myself. Like, what a jerk. And yeah, we're moving along.
And Mike, I'm going to agree with you twice so far on this show because those Christmas lights go up after Halloween. We skip November because I am not putting them jokers up and spending 3 hours for 3 weeks. Just throwing that out there. Nico.
I was just going to say my favorite Tom Cruise movie is as good as it gets. A Few Good Men. That's a good movie. I've seen that one.
Is that the only one you've seen?
I saw some sci-fi movie he was in too.
That's all right. War of the Worlds.
Well, I'm picking that. It's on my list. Hopper calls his ex-wife Diane, initially hesitant and believing that he has been drinking, but she soon becomes concerned and just hangs up. Fuck her, Hopper. She's no Lydia Dietz anyway. We cut back to the boys on the train tracks, a la Stand By Me, following their compasses. Lucas notes to Dustin that 11 is quieter than usual, and it's flashback o'clock as we see Dr. Banner, I feel like this is the Hulk, Dr. Brenner, have 11 in a giant sensory deprivation tank that they call the bath to amplify her abilities. Back in the present, she tries to get Mike to turn back, but to no prevail. We cut to Nancy and Jonathan again walking through the woods, and Nancy asks Jonathan what he thought she was saying in the picture, a conversation they had earlier, and he tells her that he saw this girl trying to be someone else and that she believed that she was alone in the moment. Annoyed by this, Nancy starts to argue over Steve and the whole situation in the whole first place. And then we cut back to Joyce's. Hopper sweeps the buyer's place for bugs, but finding none, but does tell her about Will's fake body. Cutting back to the boys, Lucas realizes by the blood on 11's nose that she's been tampering with her compasses. Seems kind of like Office Space jump to conclusions, Matt, to me, but hey, we'll take it. But it turns out to be true. Enraged, Lucas calls her the real monster and Mike attacks him. 11 uses her powers to break up the scuffle, throwing Lucas into a junked car, and as Mike and Dustin run to him, Mike yells at her, asking, what is wrong with her? And the next set of scenes is the ending.
Yeah, 11's flashbacks are interesting. Like, I really enjoy seeing how she became her, and although she's not outright truthful to Mike, I appreciate her trying to avoid, taking the boys to the lab just because she knows there's true danger. Jonathan getting nagged at by a chick who ain't his girlfriend. Boy, no way, boy. Boy, no way. And he sure as hell clapped the hell back at her, calling her mom all over again. Damn, my man Jonathan's ready to let the chopper sing, ain't he? Intense scene with Hopper entering the house with Joyce with the paper. I thought that was really good. The plot is thickening, and I'm loving it. Lucas is tired of 11. He is snapping on her ass and caught her literally red-handed. I love that. I mean, personally, 11 needs to just tell them what they're getting into. I mean, they already know it's not safe, but, like, just tell them. Like, come on. Huge oh shit moment, and I confess I got chills when Hopper tells her that she was right. Will's body was a fake. Great acting by Hopper and Joyce. Couldn't remember her name. Sorry about that. And damn, 11, that was a bit much. You didn't have to toss Lucas's ass, did you? Why don't you just freeze that motherfucker like you did the bully at school? Like, damn, you threw his ass to the fucking car. I thought it was great, but a little extreme by 11.
Again, poor Hopper here, right? Like, we kind of get bits and pieces of his backstory with his daughter, but we don't get the full story here. It starts to lay out pretty slowly, and then we get into season 2. But his story, as far as up to this port, or the point that we meet him, is very sad and tragic. And I think the scenes here with the flashbacks with 11 really work. They explain a lot of her current behaviors, who she is, how and why she is the way that she is. I think the flashbacks are great here. I ain't gonna lie, I love Nancy calling out Jonathan's bullshit picture explanation. That was such a crock of shit, trying to pull some like smooth, deep, dark, brooding guy. Man, go fuck yourself. I saw some girl who was alone. I'm glad she called him on it. I agree with John. I don't like most people either. However, you don't see me swiping their picture when they aren't looking. That's not how I operate either, brother. I will say, shout out to John. He goddamn obliterated Nancy here about her parents and her life. Left her ass speechless. So speechless that she wasn't even mad at him. She was almost impressed by the look on her face. I thought that was funny. Man, this is so I go back and forth. I know Nico mentioned earlier that he likes this Lucas, that he thinks, Lucas adds a little bit of humor, and he does, but sometimes it annoys me, and I can't help it. He speaks out of term. He's kind of an idiot when it comes to, he doesn't know what he's talking about here with Elle, and he's just kind of being an a-hole. Again, he's a kid, so, who cares? But, in some episodes, he's logical Lucas, and in this one, I just don't think that he is. And I love that Elle used her powers here. He may be hurt, but he ain't gonna fuck with her no more. Not no more. Not like that. And so I could appreciate that she, she doesn't probably like to use her powers that way. It takes a lot out of her to do that, as we find out here in this scene in particular. But I like that she was like, hey, man, leave me the fuck alone. And he doesn't believe her full time in the next episode, but he does kind of leave her the fuck alone throughout the rest of the series for the most part.
Jim calling his ex-old lady proves that it's always get your girl back season. I respect the effort. Call her, give her a sad story, make her concerned. She's going to call you back. Not sure why 11 is still wearing the wig here. I mean, she wore it as a disguise around the adults, but it has to be annoying and itchy to wear. But, oh well. Nancy has some nerve to get all rude with Jonathan here. I mean, read the woods, lady. He's going through a lot. Just take what he has to say and internalize it. Don't hurt his feelings. What are you doing? Hopper saying, oh, Jesus, said Joyce's was funny to me for some reason. I mean, he's worried about a bug, and seeing all the Christmas lights was the red flag for him. I don't know. I got to laugh out of it. 11 sabotaging the boys annoyed me too. Like, you wait until they catch on before you tell them it's not safe. In the words of Dr. Evil, use your words like a big boy clone. Lucas certainly had no problem using his words. He let it all out. Went for 11's jugular. Sheesh. But yeah, I'm ready for the finish.
Read the woods. That cracked me up. That caught me off guard a little bit. Okay, well, this is it, and I don't have much because I can't split scene by scene up where the shit, apparently. We open up in a flashback as she is using the sensory deprivation tank again and finds a Russian man they're looking for. Something growls, forcing 11 to wake up and scream while we come back to the present to see Lucas waking up all pissed off and 11 being gone. While in the woods, Nancy and Jonathan find a heavily injured deer, and Nancy somehow knows it's been hit by a car, but okay. Jonathan takes the gun to put it out of its misery, but it's dragged away before he can. They split up while following its tracks, and Nancy finds a gate in the base of a tree. She crawls through it to the upside down where we see the Demogorgon feeding on the deer. She accidentally alerts it to her presence, and it turns around and roars at her. She screams, and as Jonathan hears it across dimensions and starts to frantically look for her, the gate begins to seal itself up. And that's it for episode 5. Good thing I had so much for the second set of scenes. Go ahead.
You're good. I do the same shit. Like section 3 and 4 are super long, and then the last one's like 3 lines. It makes no sense. But scary flashback with 11. But I'm in agreement with Lucas and how he's feeling right now. I'd probably feel the same way as him. You know, Mike, he's smitten and letting that get in the way of being rational with her. I don't know why Nancy is crying seeing this hurt deer. To quote Uncle Si, that's food on the table, Jack. Hell of a jump scare when the deer is snatched, though. It got me. If I'm them, I'm getting the hell out of these woods. It's dark and shit's getting weird and spooky, and I don't vibe with that. Great ending to the episode that ended on a cliffhanger, and I'm very invested and ready to watch more.
Yeah, I kind of brought up the tie-in with the Russians here. You know, this is more of what a season 4 thing, really, than a season 1 thing, but I'm not like a huge fan of where it ends up going here, but I get it. You know, that's, again, very 80s, very of its time. You know, I disagree. Like, I understand how Lucas is feeling, but he's also pouting about it like a baby. I just don't like it. El kind of got the best of him, beat his ass. His pride's hurt more than anything, which, again, he's a kid. So, like, well, whatever. That's what kids fucking do. That's probably what I would have done. So, like, I understand. But again, man, this deer, nothing gets me more worked up and sad than an animal wincing. Like, golly, man. That tugs at my heartstrings anytime I see that. I'm not going to lie. All I wrote down for this, deer getting taken by this hungry fucking Demogorgon was, yo, that monster coming getting that deer was wild AF. That's what I wrote in my notes. That was great. I normally don't speak like that on my notes. I try to be a little bit more professional. I do like this scene a lot. It is one of the more traditional horror scenes that we've gotten in this first season, like I mentioned in my open, with the woods, the shadows, the darkness, the noise, the music, all very well done and executed. This is straight up out of a very scary horror movie, and they do a good job. I got to tip my cap to Nancy a little bit here. Nancy walking into that goddamn tree is ballsy as fuck. Like, she was exploring, man. She wanted to know, what the hell did I see? And, maybe Barb's in here too. So I like that. And I love the closing song too. Great ending to the episode. Really wanted to make me, all right, click play. Let's go to the next episode. I want to see what happens, even though this is technically my third watch through of Stranger Things. So,
yeah, it's a weird flashback with 11 walking up to the guy. The floor looked like one of the ScarJo's rooms in Under the Skin. Am I the only one that thought that? The deer getting snatched up was a good jump scare. Like, you start to think that Jonathan and Nancy's quest was going to be fruitless, but there was a whole farmer's market worth of fruit right there. And it leads Nancy right to the portal. So great tension here. Then we see the Demogorgon for the first time, and it's a pretty shocking sight. And the tree closing up is a great way to end. Great cliffhanger. And then last thing, I'll just go ahead and say it now, as far as like what I thought about the episode. It's pretty solid. The story's progressing. The tension is rising. I like this one the best so far. So I agree with you, Mike. It made me want to go right into the next episode. I gave this one an 8.
Nice. You guys got any trivia? Nico, I got a few, but Nico, do you have any? Dustin?
No, go ahead.
No.
When Will's, well, I guess it's the Byers dog, sits down on the bed of Castle Byers, you can see a stuffed animal of a lion. And earlier, when Hopper breaks into Hawkins National Laboratory and stumbles across 11's room, the same stuffed animal can be seen on her bed. Also, the teacher shows how to break through the upside-down dimension by folding a plate in half and shoving a pin through it. In Event Horizon, the same demonstration is given to show how you travel by space warp. In both, the point is to travel from one place to another quickly, here mentally, and Horizon physically. And in both cases, it turns out something evil between the entry and the exit points. And the scene in which Jonathan and Nancy are about to kill the deer out of mercy resembles a similar scene in the video game Until Dawn, which I'm excited to say I actually did play, thanks to Matt Sears giving it to me. I never hardly play video games that aren't football or baseball, so that's a big deal here. But in the scene, Jessica and Michael find a deer and try to give it a mercy kill before the deer is dragged away by the monster as well. And the last thing, just a little goof, Jonathan says the last time that he shot a gun was age 10. His father made him shoot a rabbit Afterwards, Jonathan cried for a week, like he said. But when he says he will shoot the deer, he proclaims that he is not 9 years old anymore. That should have been 10.
Got him.
Okay. Really quick, guys. Since the next episode, we're going to be giving our rating for the whole season, figured I won't wait and I'll do this here. I did find a budget for the first season of Stranger Things, $6 million per episode by Netflix. That's pretty fucking nuts. So I don't know what fucking 6 times 8 is. Y'all go ahead.
Why don't you say that again next episode too?
They must have spent most of that $48 million in acting classes for Winona Ryder because this is the best she's ever done.
That's true.
That is Mr. Deeds erasure, and I don't appreciate it.
No, I love Mr. Deeds, but as far as her acting, she showed a range of emotions in this series like she's never shown before.
I love all the Mr. Deeds references we've had this episode. This has been great.
She may have in Girl Interrupted. I don't know. I've never seen it, but it looks like a pretty intense movie. So maybe that one. I don't know.
She has beautiful ankles, from what I've heard.
I beg your pardon.
That's from Mr. Deeds.
Oh, yeah.
Not a part of the Foot Clan.
All right, you guys ready for Chapter 6, The Monster?
Bring it on, Daddy.
Oh, it has its ups and downs.
Hey-o.
More Mr. Deeds.
We open with Jonathan still frantically looking for Nancy, and we see Nancy in the Upside Down. Jonathan tells her to follow his voice and finds the gate in the tree. He is able to pull her back through, and the two watch as it seals itself up and see those credits. Boom, 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 boom. We cut to Steve's ride as we hear the certified banger Sweet Dreams playing over the radio. Marilyn Manson's version is even better, by the way. But Steve is worried about Nancy's behavior from earlier, and Tommy and Carol, who are in the car, giving him all kinds of shit. They pull up, though, and see Jonathan holding Nancy in her bedroom, which seems kind of odd. I mean, I think that they would have probably gotten all that hugging out of their system in the woods, but whatever. King Steve does not deserve this shit. Back at Joyce's, we see Hopper recounting to her about seeing a child's room in the lab, and Joyce realizes it was not Will's when comparing his more detailed drawings to the childlike one Hopper saw on the wall. He recalls the accounts of a child being seen with Benny the night that he died, and theorizes that it could be Terry Ivy's daughter, Jane, which I completely forgot about, so that was cool to see again. We see Nancy asking Jonathan to stay overnight with her, and Mike tearing apart Eleven's blanket for enrage. Look, you'll never become a Ghostbuster with that attitude, pal. The next morning, Nancy tells Jonathan that they need to save Will and Barb and conclude that it is a predator drawn to blood. And I've seen the Predator. That's completely wrong, but whatever. Karen knocks on the door, scaring them, and the two realize it, that they're holding hands.
Episode starts off intense with Jonathan unable to find Nancy and both yelling each other's name. I really liked it. Nancy about sent Jonathan to the afterlife with that hand sticking out the tree jump scare. Shit about got me too, to be honest. Me and Jonathan both about died. Shit's getting weird in Hawkins, and let's get after it. I love it. Steve, he's got to be sick seeing Jonathan consoling his girl. Bro is going to be festering all night. I can't imagine how mad he is. This sci-fi story now might have child trafficking as well. Intense as hell with the corruption going on behind the scenes. I'm really loving the story. Jonathan sprung the hell up off of that floor, though, didn't he? Real quickness. As soon as Nancy asked him to get in the bed, hell yeah, brother. And speaking of guys festering with anger, Mike is losing it on Eleven's old fortress. Another mid-movie on the wall as we see a John Carpenter's The Thing poster on the wall. You know, happy birthday, John Carpenter, but don't really like The Thing that much. Another effective jump scare with Karen rattling the doorknob, and more good hypothesizing by the teens. Great opening, and I'm ready for more. Bring it on.
Yeah, I love this first full-on look of the Upside Down here. I love it, but I did find it curious that everything has to be so gross and gooey. Like, what's up with that? Like, little white specks in the air? I don't know, man. Just pretty nasty. Thank God Nancy wasn't a goner here, because too good of a character. I know someone thought I was probably going to make a one of those jokes, but seriously, she's a great character throughout the entire series. So I definitely am glad that she wasn't gone here. And again, don't skip the intro. The music here after the intro is fucking great. You know, there is a little bit of a knowing what we know now about Steve, not in this episode, but knowing what we know now. I do feel bad for Steve seeing that in the window, because I do think he genuinely cared for Nancy and had feelings for her, like I already mentioned.
Bring back Jock's asshole Steve. He's my boy. I love him. He's treated bad.
It's a Okay, well, he kind of flubs up here in a little bit. He goes a little too far. I mean, come on. That's not what you do. Hey, that's not what you do. That's not how you act. Anyway, I love this scene with Joyce and Hopper because they're starting to tie the storylines together. We've kind of had like these two running plots go side by side, and now they're kind of starting to come together where the kids' story, their story, Nancy and John's story, all kind of starting to weave into each other. Again, John went from berating the fuck out of Nancy's family earlier to in bed with her in a couple hours. That sounds like a lot of relationships, doesn't it? That kind of sounds like marriage, and they're getting ready for it here. I'm just kidding. I hope not. That means your relationship's toxic and you should try something else. Hopper wearing this 50s detective hat is cracking me the fuck up. I know it's just like a normal hat, but like it's not really seen in modern day style. So I don't know. Him walking around with that hat on kind of cracks me up. I love how, they don't know if Barb's dead. Barb is in fact, well, never mind. No spoiler. Like I mentioned last week, maybe she's the Stu Macher of the Stranger Things franchise. Maybe she's alive and we get to see her in the next season. I don't know. But hey, a little awkward handhold here, a little awkward moment. Love is in the air. And I still don't know if I like Nancy and John together. We'll talk about that as the seasons go on.
Yeah, great job picking up where we left off with Jonathan trying to find Nancy. Credit where it's due. Like I said, they don't make us wait to start each episode. Kind of weird that the tree portal is open again, though. Like, what was the point of it closing last episode? I love that Steve saw Jonathan in Nancy's room. Not from a technical aspect or anything to do with the show, but, I mean, his character sucks, and I'm glad he saw it. I like that Will's artwork came back into play with Hopper here. It makes that touch and flashback from the last episode meaningful, so that was very well done. And Jonathan, man, he's bold. Imagine not only if Nancy's parents found him, but if he had that thing on him too. You tuck a revolver in the sleeping bag, you better be prepared to use it. Could get ugly. Lucky for him, she locked the door, though. But anyway, it's not a bad open.
We cut to Mr. Clark's house where Catfish Connie Frazier visits him under the guise of recruiting children for the AV club or some bullshit, all trying to just get Mike, Dustin, and Lucas's names. Meanwhile, in Mike's basement, Dustin is visiting, and Mike is angry at himself for shouting at her and blames Lucas for their predicament. Dustin states that they both broke their group's code and need to reconcile. We cut to 11 wandering into a nearby supermarket and has another goddamn flashback to Brenner placing her into the fucking tub to find the Demogorgon. Sorry, I'm just tired of flashbacks, that's all. After the flashback, we see her steal mini Eggos, to which would become the Halloween costume of the year that year, much to, I'm sure, the delight of the Kellogg Company, or maybe the chagrin of supermarkets in California, because I think they took this scene to mean that you could just walk in and take shit, but I don't know. Back at the Lucas residence, Lucas will only accept Mike's apology if 11 is banished from the group, which Mike does not concede to. We then follow Hopper and Joyce, who visit a now catatonic Ives. Her sister explains that she was part of the MK Ultra project and believes that she miscarried Jane. But when Ives was lucid, she insisted that Jane had been born and had abilities. Lucas now decides to find Will on his own, so I guess fuck old Mike and Dustin, which is a phrase I've found myself saying a lot over the last 5 years. I kid.
I understand.
He gears up and leaves as the fake repairman creepily watches him leave.
That was good one. It's hard for me to follow that up. But, back to the review, Dustin is right. He was the rational one, and this might make co-host Dustin cringe, but I've always loved Dustin's character on this show. And damn, Nancy and Jonathan, are y'all dumb? Not even going to clean up the pallet you made on the ground before sneaking out the window? They terrible. These nerds don't know how to freaking be sneaky. And Brian, can you please explain the R2-D2 versus Darth Vader line for me, please? I'm not familiar with this. Just kidding. Serious note, I like the discussion between the boys. It felt authentic and real for young kids. I love this 11 scene in the grocery store. And I hope Eggo sent her a check for all the waffles she sold on her behalf. Per an article in the Los Angeles Times from August 2019, Eggo waffles tripled in sales thanks to Stranger Things. They should have cut her I hope they cut her a check of something. Boss-ass scene with 11 snatching them damn waffles, ignoring the manager, and slamming the doors in his face. I loved it. The 1973 Ford Pinto Hopper drives is an homage to the protagonist in Stephen King's Cujo, a film that is probably considered overdue on the movie show, probably. Lucas has a cool look as he takes off to go find Will on his own. And these Hawkins vans sure are looking suspicious, aren't they? That's all I got. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, sorry. Had some technical stuff over here. So Mr. Clark genuinely seems like one of those teachers that's in it for the right reasons, right? Like he genuinely cares about his students, and very interested in the subject that he teaches. So, that's not always the case. And I like Scott Clark as a character here. I will say, I also need Mike to stop being so emotional. Like, I don't disagree with some of the stuff that the friends are saying about him, but that doesn't stop in later seasons either. And, the more I think about it, I'm like, man, Mike's kind of an emotional guy, kind of like me. I'm just wearing my emotions on my sleeve. What can I say? Again, I agree with Dustin here. Mike has to shake Lucas's hands first, even though Lucas was being a dick. He is the one that attacked him. That's how it works, brother. And technically, I don't think Elle did anything wrong, to be honest. She was kind of defending herself a little bit from Lucas's verbal spars. I got to hand it to her. And again, threw him with her mind. So kind of trumps out, trumps all if I can beat my ass, or if I can beat your ass with my brain. I love the scene where she takes the wig off and screams to like break the water or like, ripple that water. I think it's really powerful because, she's not going to be anything she's not. She's just going to be herself. And I think that was kind of a moment like, I don't know who I am, but I'm not this wig, right? And I did like that. Again, Lucas being kind of a big baby here. I like that he's not so trusting, but it is kind of time to move on and let it go instead of getting in the way of these guys finding Will. Yeah. Again, Papa is such a massive, he's such a manipulative asshole here, right? Like, these are all of our friends. They've come to watch you. No, go fuck yourself. These are strangers. You're conducting mind experiments. This is fucking weird. He's a piece of shit. I hate this guy. The Echo scene is fantastic. I love the callback to calling him a mouth breather, which means Elle has taken something from Mike, so she feels the same as Mike does. And, that manager was being nice, though. He wasn't being a mouth breather. He was trying to help Elle out. So, she doesn't get that, though. If my glass door is broke like that and I own this store, I'd probably just let her take the waffles, mark it as known loss into the system. What can you do? If somebody stole it, not anything we can do about that. Probably won't hurt the profit margin too much there. I forget they visit Elle's mom in this season. Just completely forgot. That's all I had.
Yeah, it slows down a bit here after an eventful open, but it gives us some more story progression, which is nice. Nancy's sneaking out with Sly, but they could have at least put Jonathan's sleeping bag away. No need to make mom think she ran off with a boy. Lucas acted completely rational and wanted nothing to do with 11 here. I mean, I wouldn't either. Throw me once, shame on you. Throw me, can't get thrown again, as George Bush said. When 11 stole the waffles, why did that manager start chastising her as soon as she grabbed them? You have to pay for those before she even got close to the registers. I mean, get real. She just took them out of the freezer, and he's like, hey, she's stealing. Anyway, onward.
We open up with Mike and Dustin on their bikes, discovering the supermarket shenanigans that 11 caused. We cut back here to more discussing about Ives, but I pretty much already talked about that last set of scenes. So let's get into Lucas here as he has a run into a fence issue trying to get into the perimeter of the forest. We then cut back to the Army surplus where Nancy and Jonathan are buying hunting supplies. Nancy notices that the local theater has been branded with graffiti as they have written Nancy the Slut Wheeler, starring in all the right moves. And that doesn't sound like a movie that we can review on this show. But they see Steve, Tommy, Carol, and Nicole spraying more nearby, and she confronts Steve and slaps the shit out of him. This provokes a little scuffle between Steve and Jonathan, where Jonathan takes some big swings from Steve, but has that retard strength. I'll beat that out. And takes out my man Steve, and I'm sure he cheated somehow. Steve would never. Officer Callahan pulls up to break it up and arrest Jonathan while Steve gets away. It's a small town. I mean, they know who you are, right? I mean, come on. Back at the police station, Nancy realizes from the secretary up front that Jonathan is in love with her. She gives him some ice and needs to go apologize to my man Steve. But anyway, that's the end of this set of scenes.
Yeah, I don't have a lot for this one. I think it's possible to have more than one best friend. I agree with Mike. I got 3 best friends. What's up, fellas? Talking to y'all. Hey, thanks, Nico. You're welcome, guys. Off topic, but smoking in the house is so disgusting. Like, I know this was a different time, but that shit's nasty. Don't do that. The interaction between Joyce, Hopper, and Becky is a bit confusing, but it's interesting. I haven't seen this in so long, I'm genuinely curious if 11 is Terry's long-lost daughter, like Mike mentioned. I forgot all about this, too. I chuckled at Nancy telling the cashier they are monster hunting, and he just believed it. Like, okay. I'd be furious if I were Nancy seeing this horrible graffiti message for all the town to see. I love seeing her snap on Steve, and the camera work that followed her I thought was fantastic. Damn good fight sequence, but damn, Jonathan should probably be arrested for battery, right? Like, that was excessive as hell and damn near killed Steve. And, like, he probably would have if the cops wouldn't have been there. The writers set up this love triangle and romance very nicely. 6 episodes in, and we're getting nice character arcs already. I appreciate it, and I'm loving it.
3 best friends that anyone could have.
Great song. Great movie. I agree. I love the character groundwork that we're laying here. I feel like, again, I finished this, I finished every season, but I do feel like I really know these characters well. I agree with Nico. You can, in fact, have more than one best friend. Too bad I only have one. I'll let you guys decide which one it is. Anyway. I'm just
Cat.
Yeah, I say Cat's my best friend. But you guys are right there.
Vinny. I was gonna say Vinny.
Of course, you're all my best friends. Of course, you can have more than one best friend. Come on, everyone. Not everyone. Just Cat, Vinny, you 3, my brother Jeremy and Gary, and Sterling. I have a lot of best friends. Anyway, this is my 3rd watch through, and again, I forget they cover this MK Ultra stuff this early with Terry at the like. I completely it just doesn't register in my mind because this stuff is such a big part of one of the seasons that we get that I just forget they're kind of, sprinkling it in here, laying that groundwork for the MK Ultra stuff. Her sister was able to explain exactly what she went through and exactly what we've seen Elle go through, which again was really creepy. And MK Ultra was actually real. So I love that. I actually like that tie in here that we get. Again, miscarried. No way, lady. Terry knows she can see the upside down. She's been to the upside down and she knows that Jane, 11, is alive. Okay. Now, Lucas wanted that like a big tough guy this whole time. Gets to a barbed wire fence and doesn't have the balls to climb over it. I've done that. Huh? I've climbed over barbed wire fence. Why don't you have some balls? Hop up that fence, Mr. Lucas, and get over it. No? Okay. Honestly, I love the response from Nancy about monster hunting. I thought it was really funny and really quick and really great because it left him with nothing to say, This is the John-Nancy connection that I do like. There's some stuff in the later seasons I'm not a massive fan of, but their connection seems to be genuine, although it's starting to become trauma bonding, which is a big fancy term people use now, I guess. But it kind of fits here, right? I mean, they're kind of bonding over this trauma of, her best friend going missing and his brother going missing and this Demogorgon and all this stuff that's going on with the Upside Down. However, we have been hyping Steve up. We're kind of Steve apologists, some might say. But this shit right here is not okay. Using your connections to call Nancy a slut on the movie arch for the whole town to see is the reason it takes Steve almost 2 full seasons to recover from this action. That is not okay. No, Brian, you can shrug if you want. You could just tell her that to her face. You don't have to plaster it on the whole town. Come on, man. Just not cool. And I love the scene where they confront him in the alley, right? Again, I know that John was being a creep. We've covered that. But, things change. The tables have turned. Nancy has seemed to forgiven him for that. So why can't everybody else? And I love that John absolutely beats the fuck out of Steve here because Steve wanted to act tough. He couldn't get them hands across quick enough, though. John beat his fucking ass. He crossed the line, had to be humbled, had to be done. Creepy pictures be damned. Last thing. All right, lady, that is not the true definition of assaulting an officer. Go ahead.
Yeah, you guys are right. This is proof that this is the inferior Dustin. You can, in fact, have more than one best friend. Anyone who says otherwise is just completely wrong. Not everyone does have more than one best friend, but you can. Pretty big mystery and head scratcher when we hear that Terry miscarried in the 3rd trimester, but the cuts back and forth to 11 in the lab make it even more intriguing. Like you go from huh to oh. I thought that was really well done. Maybe I'm the only one that took that long to catch on. It was cool though. Pretty funny when Nancy tells the guy at the store that they're monster hunting. He's just like, oh, all right. And yeah, Steve sucks, man. New plan. Take that bear trap you just bought, sneak into his house while he's sleeping, and put it right below his bed. Nice. I'm glad that Jonathan beat him to a pulp. He sucked. I like the old hag at the police station. I think you better tell him he's not your boyfriend. Like, wake up, sister. He loves you. I'm ready for the finish here.
And here's the finish. Back in the woods, Mike and Dustin come across Troy and James, who pull out a switchblade, to which triggers an "oh shit" response from Dustin that made me laugh. And Mike and they take off. Lucas, following his compass and still being cockblocked by the fence, decides to climb a tree and uses binoculars, to which he notices some unusual activity. We then cut back to Dustin cramping up during the chase. Made me laugh too. And Troy and James eventually catch up to them at the rock quarry at the edge of the cliff. Troy orders Mike to jump off of it or else he will cut out Dustin's teeth. Holy shit, that escalated quickly. Mike jumps, but is caught in midair by Eleven's powers, who had heard them looking for her and followed their voices. She lifts Mike back to safety and breaks Troy's arm with her mind, forcing the bullies to flee. 11 has a flashback to encountering the Demogorgon in the void, their combined powers accidentally opening the lab's gate and freeing it into the lab. 11 tearfully admits that she opened the gate, but Mike and Dustin insist that she is their friend and that the three embrace. As they return home, the repairman calls in their location and Lucas watches soldiers leave the lab.
Man, 11's out in the woods eating on some Eggos fresh out the box. Look, she's off an edible or something, don't she? Goodness gracious. Lucas with a nice aha moment seeing the mysterious vans at the base. Loved it. Easily my favorite scene of the first season from my memory. I can't remember 7 and 8 100%. But Mike and Dustin by the cliff's edge with the bullies. I love it. I have, a canvas of her walking up. I love it. These bullies are psychopaths though, right? Threatening to cut out a kid's baby teeth or have another kid leap to their most likely death. What the fuck is wrong with these kids? Like, come on. Mike is a real one, though. He did leap off that cliff to save Dustin. Mike is a real one. Like, giving him his props for that. And the oh shit, I thought seeing this for the first time, seeing Mike floating in the air. Wow. 11, I know my wrestling friends and co-hosts will love this. 11 walking up on these bullies like Goldberg did the Rock way back when on Raw, I think it was. Heartwarming scene with the three kids hugging, embracing after such an intense moment. These vans look super suspicious. No clue how the town folk weren't armed to them sooner, though. Like, do y'all not know how to pick up on context clues? Hell of an episode. Is my favorite one of the season by far so far.
I agree with that. This is my favorite episode of the season so far. Again, I did do 7 and 8 scene by scene. So I won't say it's up to this point, it's my favorite episode. It's not my favorite episode of the season, though. I'll wait for next week on that. I don't have a whole lot here because it kind of just, all comes together in the end. Frozen Eggos out of the box. What a psycho. Like, hey, I know, you're kind of fresh out the lab, as some might say, as the kids might say. But, yeah, man, that's not going to work. You're going to fix it. Again, she had Eggos cooked with yummy butter and syrup and stuff, and that's great. I'm glad that, or, whatever, but not out of the box like this. Holy shit, the bullies turned the volume up 150 here. They went and got a fucking knife. That is some scary shit. At that age, your middle school bullies have a knife? That's crazy behavior. This one kid looks like one of Ricky Bobby's sons. You know what I'm talking about? Like, like he really, like he looks like the older Ricky Bobby son, right? Like, I'll beat your ass, old man. That one. Okay.
I keep waiting. I kept waiting to hear Doyle rules.
Yeah, it has that look to him too. So I will just say I would jump for one of you guys. If someone had a knife to your neck and that's what it meant, that's what we had to do to get wet, I'd jump for one of you guys. I'm not going to tell you which one, but I'd jump for one of you. That's the second time I made that joke tonight. You're very fucking welcome.
We appreciate that.
Hey, ooh, pop.
Oh, sorry.
You know what? Leave it in. Pause. All right, we're getting off the rails here. Let's fucking go, L. This is the 11 I love. This earlier version where she's kind of a badass with her powers. Again, we are starting to see that consistently they take a lot out of her, and I do like that. I like that we start to see that as a character development. Like you can't just use the powers all the time. You've got to, it has a lot, that goes into it. And I like that. And honestly, the scene of Mike hanging in the air is pretty fucking cool. Right. Like if you jumped and you got paused midair, you'd be like, well, this is pretty fucking cool, man. I'm just going to do all kinds of like dancing and shit. I'd start doing the moonwalk, man. I'd start having a blast. Last thing here, the flashback scene does a good job of giving us just a little sneak peek of what the power of what they're about to be dealing with is. And then they all go back home because they don't know where Lucas is, but we know where Lucas is. And now I feel bad for Lucas, which is the first time that we've been doing this that I've said that. So that's all I had.
Yeah, frozen waffles straight from the box. What did they do to this girl in the lab? I mean, that is savagery. The bullies with the blade finding Dustin and Mike in the woods while 11 hears them calling out for her, and then the compass going crazy for Lucas while the score picks up. That's great. Really ramping up here. Numbnuts, that's an underrated insult. Thought that was worth noting. But Mike proved Dustin wrong. Only a best friend would take that plunge for you. But being caught mid-fall like that by nothing would be scarier than the jump itself. 11 certainly has a flair for the dramatic. This is a solid ending. This one wasn't as good as the last episode to me, but it was still pretty good. I gave it a 7.5.
When Troy pulls a knife on Mike and Dustin, it's reminiscent of Stephen King's It, when the bully uses a switchblade to carve its initials in one of the kids. Finn Wolfhard later played Richie in the film It and its sequel It Chapter 2. And me being a fan of these movies and the show, I thought this was kind of cool. When Jonathan gets the better of Steve, allegedly, and is repeatedly punching him in the face, Tommy shouts out, "Stop it, man, he's had enough," which is almost exactly what Bobby says in The Karate Kid when Daniel is getting beat up after the Halloween dance. Later in Chapter 2, Trick or Treat Freak, Tommy is wearing a Cobra Kai as his costume at the Halloween party. So, yeah, just like, in my opinion, 2 great episodes. I said at the beginning it's going to ruin my thing. It's a little harder to do what I originally wanted to at the start, which was at least have a number 1 and see if it got upended. But now these are almost running together, so I'm going to stop doing that now. I don't know if anybody cares.
All right, 5 and 6, I thought they were great episodes. Like I mentioned, 6 is my favorite episode we've done so far of this season, just because I love Elle, finally starting to take over the series. Like, she's starting to reveal her true powers and the camaraderie is coming together. I really loved it. I'm excited to conclude the season next week. It's been really fun coming back to this DGOT, the series episodes. I'm sorry that I've been sick a lot of it. I know a lot of us are kind of fighting some kind of bug or something like that. Shit sucks. I'm ready for it to not be freezing cold, then hot the next day, then raining. I'm sick of this. Hope we all start feeling better. Appreciate y'all listening, tuning in, and y'all have a good one. We'll be back next week.
I'm fighting some contaminated chicken. Jason X.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you next week. And in the meantime, take care of yourself.
Just want to remind everybody,